So welcome back once again. This is Laith at impactskills. Welcome back to our channel. Today, I'm really going to talk about the next webinar of a 4-part series. This is part 3, where we talk about probably one of the most important aspects of presentations and communication at all. And that is the art of storytelling. The art of storytelling has been with us for millennia, for ages. 100,000 years ago, people gathered in a cave around a campfire, told wonderful stories of interest, curiosity, of all kinds of areas of their lives. You know, back then, if you didn't listen to stories, there is a chance you would have been eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or possibly not found food or water. So storytelling became an integral part of our lives. And through evolution, we still love to hear stories. People lean in, metaphorically and physically, when somebody says, let me share a story with you. And it's a wonderful thing because it really, in this day and age when everything is trying to take our focus away from us, stories still have that magic essence to pull you in. So on this webinar, number 3, we'll talk about how emotions will really engage and captivate your audience. How do we get stories? Where do they come from? And why are they so important to share a story, particularly in a business context where you definitely need to look at some kind of bridge or an association to your key business message, your key business takeaway. So that is the purpose of this webinar, and we'll talk a little bit about icebreakers and how to captivate your audience during and beyond webinars and presentations. So I really hope you enjoyed. Get ready, fasten your seatbelts for part 3.
We should take off if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay, so we start on time because everybody that's here has made the effort to be on time. So thank you very much for everybody that's attending the call today. It's absolutely our pleasure to have you on the 3rd webinar. For those of you who have just arrived for the first one, you're in for a great time, but it's our pleasure, and it really is, we're delighted to have you all here today. Thank you very much for being here. Maciej.
Hello, my name is Maciej Trybulec. I'm so happy to be together with you, with my friend Laith. I see so many known faces, so it's even much nicer pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us. Before we take off, I suggest to share some technical aspects. So let me share the screen with you. We suggest to mute all your microphone if you don't mind, to avoid background noises. On the other hand, as I said before, please open your camera. It would be nice to have this human eye contact. We will, despite of muted microphone, we will have many interactions using questions and comments put into the chat box. So please visit your chat box. If you have anything to share, to comment, and to ask, use it. Second way of interactions will be known to those who were already with us, Mentimeter. This is a very good tool for interaction. You can just grab your phone and go to the menti.com as you see and put the code 889185. 889185. That's the one way to interact with us. There is another way, even easier. If you look into the chat box, I already put the link. What you have to do, just to click the link, you will be transferred to the place when you can answer questions or sometimes votes. And we will do in a moment exercise. Just remind you that we suggest to use speaker's view rather than gallery view. From time to time you will switch to gallery view, but in order to not deconcentrate, maybe to not be distracted, please use the speaker's view. All right, so let's see how the Menti.com works. So please go to chat box or go to this menti.com, use code and tell us the first traditional questions. Where are you now? So please give the name of the country, name of the city. Where are you connecting from? And I am with you sharing already. Where are we located? How far our invitations went?
Could you please send the link one more time?
It's already in the chat box, but I will send, obviously. I'm sending now the link. I see already many places. I will share with you.
So we can see where everybody's located, which is always fun.
Right. I love this part of the exercise.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm presenting. So we are present strongly in Casablanca. By the way, the size of the letters is showing more than one person is over there. So Poland, Casablanca, Reading, Zagreb, Malta, United Kingdom. What do you say, lady?
Absolutely. And the word cloud is a wonderful tool because it allows you in real time to find out who's where and where they're located. And of course, other exercises to follow with this. And of course, very highly interactive for your audience.
So we're welcoming people from Bucharest, Romania. We welcome from Łódź, United
Russia,
Emirates,
Morocco, Zagreb,
Russia,
Dubai,
Floriana, Malta.
Algeria.
Great.
Wonderful.
It means that it works. It works. Yeah. 21 of you voted. So maybe I repeat the code. You can go to menti.com 889185 or go to the chat box, click. If it doesn't transfer you automatically, just copy, paste into the browser you're using. Good. This is the first part of exercise. As simple as the second one. Second one, tell us, please, go to the same place. Are you the first time on the webinar, second time, or maybe you're so loyal to be the third time already? Well, I see some third time, 5 people are third time, 7 people are third time. Good. We didn't disappoint you. That's a good message.
Perhaps you could drop the link again in case anybody can't see it.
I cannot when I share the screen.
Okay.
I'm sure there is a link.
Great.
Well, so we have actually quite equally split. So we have, well, no, maybe not equally. 13 people are the third time, 6 people are first newcomer, 5 second time.
Still got more coming in. 14 on the third time. Thank you very much for your coming back, everybody, and welcome everybody on the first time. And of course, everybody for the second time. You in the middle there. So once again, this is called menti.com. It's a wonderful tool if you're ever doing online trainings, presentations, webinars. It's highly interactive, very simple to use, and it allows you to interact with your audience. As you know from the first 3 webinars, we're very transparent about what we're doing because we're training you not only to be captivating and interactive, but also have the tools that we use in the background.
All right. Thank you very much, Leigh.
Great. So thank you very much for that, Maciek. And also thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. It's an absolute delight to be with you, especially if you're first time or third time and second time. Thank you very much. So today is all about storytelling. So that's exactly what I'm going to do with you right now. Cast your minds back to 2006. It's some time ago, 13, 14 years ago. January 2006, I was very fortunate. After a 4-month recruitment period, I got a new job based out of New York. I doubled my salary in the space of 4 months. It was a wonderful year. 2006 stays in my head for lots of reasons, which will become apparent. Fast forward to something like October, we realized that actually we'd been wanting to buy another house because we'd had one daughter who was 3 years old at the moment. And we were considering buying another house from out of an apartment into a house so we have more space and more room for the children to grow up. In October, we realized that Daniela was pregnant. So we thought, great, we will actually buy this new house. So with a new salary, of course, I committed to a higher mortgage, a bigger house and bigger bills. And of course, a baby coming along the way. So a great year so far. New salary, new house, new baby. Let's go to December 2006. 2006, December the 8th, in fact, I remember the date. It was a Friday. The employer that took us on went through a huge merger, and that merger meant that everybody that was just employed, last in, is now first out. So I was made redundant along with 9 other people. So from having this great start to the year, all of a sudden, I've got no job, a higher mortgage, bigger bills, and a baby coming along. Midway through December, my partner Daniela found that she had a lump in her breast. Fast forward again to January. Christmas was a nightmare that year, as you can imagine. We had the first consultation and we realized that it was cancerous, of course, but not only cancerous, it was quite advanced and quite aggressive. And because the first consultation in December wasn't a great one, we found a different doctor, and he said, you need to treat this now. You need to get to hospital and start treatment immediately. And we said, well, we're pregnant. And he said, right, we need to have a look at this. It's a very difficult situation. At the time, we had a very, very clever surgeon and a doctor consultant, and basically said to us, you have 3 cases in the UK where this is possible at the moment. So it's very, very rare. We were just lucky, I guess. So I had to make a decision. We spoke together at length, myself and Daniela. What are we going to do? We had to make a very, very tough decision. We either carry through with the pregnancy and risk delaying the treatment for Daniela, or we abort and then start the treatment immediately. It's an impossible decision. What would you do? So from that decision, it gave us a lot more clarity, because I don't know if you know, but in the UK, you have a 24-week cutoff point when you need to abort the child. Once you go past 24 weeks, you have no choice but to go through the pregnancy. We then discovered through all the tests that you have through normal pregnancy that actually, her name's Ruby, the child, the baby at the time, was basically had a condition called talipes, which is where the feet are folded under, commonly known as clubfoot. And clubfoot can be 2 reasons. 1, it's the position the baby is lying in the womb, or 2, it could simply be an abnormality in the chromosome, which is a much more problematic situation with spinal problems or head injury, problems. So we decided to carry through with the pregnancy. We went past 24 weeks. Now we had clarity, since we decided together that this is what we were going to do. At 29 weeks, waters broke and Ruby was born. She was tiny, 800 grams. I could hold her in my hand. Literally, she was tiny. She went straight into an incubator with a respirator, electrodes all over her, monitoring all sorts of conditions. What happened then is, of course, we took her straight to the special care baby unit, and Daniela was wheeled off into the cancer unit. Both were receiving treatment at the same time. Very difficult period. Remember the backdrop. I have no job, no money, a bigger mortgage, bigger bills, and a 3-year-old to take care of. So it was an impossible situation. What happened next was Ruby started to recover. Daniela started to recover. She was not in a good situation. You can imagine anybody that's been touched by cancer will know that radiotherapy and chemotherapy kind of ruins your body for the greater good. But in the meantime, it's not good for your body. And let me share the screen with you right now. This is how Daniela looked. Skin is blotchy. She's lost her hair, looking very sick, lost her weight. That is Ruby a few weeks later in her arms. You can imagine that when she was born, she couldn't be held by Daniela. She had to go straight to the cancer unit. So that oxytocin that bonds mother and baby wasn't there to start off with, which is very, very emotional for both parties. I had to go back and forth from the cancer unit to the special care baby unit, visiting them both. And in the meantime, she's recovering. Daniela, let's fast forward 10, 12 years. She is now helping other patients. She's a cancer coach. She helps post-cancer care, supporting children, supporting other mothers who've gone through breast cancer. Ruby has come a huge way since she was born. This is what her feet looked like when she was born. This is Ruby today, about 2 years ago, in fact. Bright, young girl, full of life. She goes rock climbing. She cycles. She runs and jogs. If you look at her feet, you wouldn't be able to tell there was anything wrong, although she's still receiving treatment today. But her biggest passion, her absolute biggest passion, is boxing, kickboxing, in fact, a style of martial art. She's taken that on board from a very young age, 6, 7 years old, to the level now where she's been to Thailand. She's learned a whole new style of kickboxing, which is Muay Thai. Fast forward till October last year, from a little baby that was sick in an incubator that was hardly going to live, she's now world champion, silver medalist in 4 martial art disciplines. Quite an achievement. We're obviously very proud. Key takeaways. Make the best decision you can with the information you have. Set clear goals and know your intended outcome. Take daily action to achieve that goal. What I learned and what We've learned together as a family, and Ruby has actually taught us. Always have persistence, always persevere, have what I call personal power, that strength that you have inside, and be positive. Be positive all the time. And from a business perspective, if you wanted to link this and associate it to a key business message, there are so many takeaways there. This year, 2007, when all this was passing and going into recovery, is when Impact Skills was actually born. So not only is Daniela helping other people, Ruby also helps other people in the kickboxing lesson. I'm obviously helping other people on these sort of things with webinars. So a lot of good has come from this huge adversity that we went through. So thankfully, we're all well. Daniela is a cancer coach, works full time. Ruby is a world champion. And I'm obviously set up with Impact Skills 13 years ago and helping people in over 30 countries. Maciej.
I know the story late, but whenever I am listening, I have shivers on my body. I want to really thank you very much for sharing with us such a personal and emotional story of your life. It really shows leaders' vulnerability, your transparency, your openness, and your trust that you were sharing the story. So thank you very, very much. When I observe, when I run training, when I have big presentations on a big forum, I always was astonished by the one phenomenon. This is the storytelling. You said very powerful, very emotional story, but sometimes I am telling kind of average story. For example, it was last Friday. I woke up 5 a.m., much earlier than usual. I took a shower and I went to make a breakfast, and the story goes like that. It's regular, normal, nothing in it spectacular. And I see suddenly that the attention of the people is switching into the higher mode of listening. If they were chatting or maybe using the phones, they suddenly look at me. So I said, what the hell is going on? Why story, even average story, has such a powerful way to go to people's heart and the people's brain? I think as a medical doctor from my education, I think I have at least partial answer of that. So let me share you a picture which is symbolizing probably time which took place about 100,000 years ago. The Homo sapiens started in this period first communication, and the only way was a storytelling. We didn't have the smartphone yet at the time. And the people sitting around the fire spoke about the most important things. And good ability of story listening was a condition to survive. If you were not listening properly, that nearby the cave there is a wild animal, you can be killed by it, or maybe on the other side there is a place where you can find water or food, you might starve to death. So this is why we have a mindset to, when someone starts to say story, you're immediately, subconsciously even, switching into the mode of very, very precise listening. So the storytelling is deeply hardwired in our brain. Much later, about 27,000 years ago, another way of communication began. This was the rock paintings in Lascaux cave. And much, much later, only I can say 3,500 years ago, the first written form of communication was discovered in Mesopotamia. It was called the cuneiform. So you see, 100,000, 27,000, 3,500, and PowerPoint was born 30 years ago, roughly, a little bit more than that. So please ask yourself, what is the best way to reach people's mind, people's heart, human ego? Think also how much during your presentations, offline, the real world, you are using PowerPoint and how much you are using storytelling, which is very deeply inculcated.
Yeah, it's so true. 100,000 years ago, more than that, in fact, people used to sit around a campfire, and if you didn't listen to the story, you would either get killed by a wild animal or simply starve. You wouldn't know where the nearest watering hole is or where the nearest food was. So stories became a way of telling the news. Today, we're so used to switching on the news on the radio, on even on our phones or on TV, that it just gets thrown at us. It's channeled through to us. And then we progressed to more recently with PowerPoint. And I will also add to that, in terms of an attention span, about 3 years ago, we had something that I'm sure you're all familiar with if you've got children, called TikTok and Instagram. But certainly TikTok has taken off, and now it's the biggest growing app in the world. My point with that is it's very, very consuming for the younger generation, which, by the way, will feed into your corporations in Gen Z in the next sort of 3 to 5 years. Their attention spans are down to 15 seconds. Let me say that again. Their attention spans are down to 15 seconds. How on earth do you think you're going to captivate them with a half an hour or 45-minute presentation, webinar, training, whatever it might be? One of the only ways you can is still hooking up with their emotions. That way you can tell a story and you will get their full attention. The other thing I wanted to mention here is that we're all human beings. We connect via stories. We connect heart to heart first. So it's always the connection before the content. So remember that phase, connection before the content. Before you are a general manager, before you are a medical director, before you're an engineer, you are a human being first. It doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter what organization you work for, big or multinational, small or multinational. You're a human being first. So a story is one of the best ways, or in fact, the best way, I would say, to connect with people. Maciej.
Right. And if you want to be an effective speaker, you have to use the storytelling. But also you have to use right arguments. What does it mean, right arguments? Well, maybe I will try to show you on the whiteboard. This is the scheme. Author is a friend of mine, Marek Stonczek. So let me draw you something. By the way, you can see how easy it is to replace the flip chart on this whiteboard during the webinar. Okay, so if we talk about arguments, they should have two elements. The one element, they have to be convincing. So let me put, they have to be convincing. And this should be put in a certain scale. So here from 0, where, well, this is not convincing at all. It flows of me like water on duck's back, until here, the second part. Whoa, this is really convincing. I changed my mind. I want to buy it. I want to have it. You really use arguments very convincing. Second axis is here. And this is arguments has to be original. So let me put them again on the scale from not really original arguments we are using. I heard it 1,000 times. It's really nothing new. Until here, whoa, this is something new. This is new approach. I never thought in this way. This is out of the box. And then when you plot very simple lines, let me just put in maybe blue color. If you put two simple lines, you will divide this matrix into 4 parts. So you have, let me just put this spotlight. Yeah, so you'll see better. So then you have this zone, which is what can be called gray one. Arguments not original, not convincing. Nobody wants to be here. Here you have arguments which are convincing, but they are heavy, substantial, not really very original. In this square, you have very interesting, innovative, original arguments. However, well, they are kind of a bon mots, not really convincing. And the fourth golden field, you might say. Everybody should be in this place. You should have arguments which are original and convincing. And when I run sometimes training for managers with big corporations, sometimes senior managers, CEOs, and I ask a very simple question. Please finish the sentence. Why is it worth to cooperate with your company? I can tell you that most of the arguments are somewhere around here. Example, yes, it's worth to cooperate with us because we are a reliable partner, we have innovative products, and we are present worldwide. You sure that competition is not having exactly the same claim? It's really not original at all. It's a lot of fun when I put the arguments here. And it's not surprising, it's today very difficult to find a really original and very convincing argument. And I'm telling this to ensure you that what storytelling is doing is exactly bringing these arguments for the gray zone to this golden one. And we will show you an example of that, but please, if you want to be convincing, if you want to be original, if you want to reach human mind, heart, use storytelling. And don't be afraid, maybe it's not the good place for business meeting. Yes, it is, as I said last week. It's worth to be original, different, swimming against the mainstream. So the same refers to story.
Yeah, thank you, Maciek. Absolutely right as well. I mean, the vast majority of people that I know in business who are selling to me, for example, are always in the bottom left-hand corner, and, you know, politely ask them if that's all they've got. Essentially, if they're not original and or not convincing in the lower left-hand quadrant, I'm not interested. You know, their argument needs to be in the top right-hand corner. How do you bridge it to the top right-hand corner so it's convincing and persuasive and it's original? And there are very few examples of that. I mean, if you go back 15 years with the iPod, for example, that was original and that was convincing. Who knew, for those of us who are a little bit more mature, that you could carry, 5,000 songs in your pocket in a little item this size? Certainly wasn't the case when I had a little cassette tape on my hip. You had 12 songs. So original and convincing and influential takes you to the top right-hand quadrant. Most stories around presentations in business will be pretty mundane in my experience, pretty boring and pretty linear and average, which if you want to differentiate yourself, the good news is it's actually quite simple. Use a story and then bridge it. Use a vehicle to take it from whatever the story is into a much more convincing original argument or persuasive dialogue in order to be influential but with integrity. Maciek, have you got an example of that?
Yes, I have one example. I have many examples, but I'll share with you one example. Okay. A colleague of mine, general manager of one of the pharma company, had a big challenge. She had to convince their employees that procedures are very important and they are helping to be on the safe side. They are needed and should be really fulfilled. You can imagine, I don't know what is your reaction to procedure. I am not really a fan of it. When I think about procedure, long, sometimes boring, sometimes very complicated, it's not my cup of tea. So what she did, she started in the big meeting with the all employees, she started with the storytelling. She said the following story. I had a friend of mine living in Paris. When their daughter, Kate, was turning 6, we bought her a beautiful gift. There was the ticket to this French Disneyland. The daughter has also another dream to have the sneakers with the blinking yellow lights in the soles. So they did the day before, they bought her the present. Next day they went to the Disneyland, having great time for first 2 hours. And when they got off one of the carousel, their parents were sitting on the bench and chatting, and Kate was running around. And after a while, they look around, there is no daughter. So they started to search desperately, 1 minute to 3 minutes, and she was gone. So what they did, immediately found the guard in the garden and tell him, our daughter disappeared. So what the guard did, he started very clear and obvious security procedure. Point number 1, we close all gates. Point number 2, we take you parents to the main gate when you have the biggest many screens where each camera is watching people leaving the garden. Number 3, we give you they give the parents instructions what they have to do, that they have to take care of those people who are living with the kids, and especially zooming them and see who, and they have to make a decision to let them go or maybe have additional control. And 4 and 5. So the procedure is going on for 20 minutes, and suddenly mother says to her husband, John, please take a look on this boy being carried on by the man. He has exactly the same shoes like our Kate, with these blinking yellow lights in soles. So the guard said, okay, let's approach them. When they came, it turned out it wasn't a boy. It was their Kate with cut hair, baseball cap on her head, and probably under sedatives because she was sleeping. And at this moment, general manager used the power of pause. You remember last week? And she said, you will never appreciate the procedure in the time when they are written. You might treat them as a boring, dull, maybe sometimes too complicated. But in the crisis situations, you will find them priceless, invaluable, very extremely valuable, and you see that they may save you, ensure your security, save your head, and save your life. Let's talk about procedure. So you see what she did. She was bringing relatively boring arguments that procedures are important, you have to take care of them, they should be fulfilled by everyone. So she was bringing from the relatively gray zone to the golden one with the very high level of convincement, I believe, and I think also very original. So she's changing the approach to the way how they should really take care of procedure, not the writing them, but also really taking care of fulfilling them properly. So that's the power of storytelling. Just one example, I might have many of them, but we don't have time. Late.
Yeah, Matt, it's a very powerful story. And, I'm sure we've all been in a situation where we've had younger kids. That happens to be Disneyland Paris, but I know of cases in the UK and abroad as well, in the US, where they've got gigantic malls, in Dubai, where they've got gigantic malls. You can imagine when they open up that they're talking about policies, procedures, in terms of what they're going to be doing when an emergency happens. The people in that presentation are probably quite bored. It's a very mundane, subject, process, procedures, updates to the security issues and so on. However, as I know the rest of that story of magic as well, this was a 6-year-old girl, Kate. Had those processes and procedures not existed, she was kidnapped, her hair cut very quickly, baseball cap put on her head, and probably injected with some kind of sedative, and she was about to be taken away. God knows what would have happened to her. But because of the process and procedure, she was saved. Now she, as Matcha said, she brought that story to life and then said, this is how important processes and procedures are. Do you think in the moment she had their attention? Yeah, 100%, 100%. Great, so we're going to close that chapter off and we're going to have a little bit of an energizer. Everyone's looking like they're so zoned into the story, which is great, but let's do something a little bit different, okay? Now, Paul and Tomasz, if you're there and you absolutely have okay with it, please show your camera, but if you can't, we totally understand if you don't want to. If you can, it would be really useful.
Yeah, this is
hey,
message
Paul.
of
Good to see you.
Paulina,
Tomasz,
Irena, Ima.
Tomasz, are you there
please
by
open.
any chance?
Great. Yeah. Oh, great. And Vera, if you can open, it will be perfect because to have fun, it requires whole screen of open cameras. Thank you, Marta.
Okay.
Great. Oh,
Good.
this is perfect. This is perfect. So Daniela, I see she's in the middle.
Yeah, look at that. Okay, let's have a look. So, okay. So what I'd like you to do, thank you everybody for sharing. It's going to really, really appreciate it. So Zoom has selected you, not me. Okay. So welcome again to the call. I would like you to do something very specific, if I may.
Okay.
Put your arms up. Okay. And then cross them. Okay. Now, if you look about Elżbieta, Elizabeth, I would like you to do this. Okay, Maciej, you have to do, so Elżbieta, if you look at your own picture, I want your arms to be in the same direction as Agnieszka. Okay, Paul, I'm afraid you're next, my friend. So if you face the camera and try and get, what we're trying to achieve here is a giant X across the screen. All right, so Paul, if you maneuver yourself so you can match, there, yeah, a bit more, there you go. Now Vera, you're on my screen in the bottom right, opposite direction. That's it. Paul, lift your right elbow even higher. That's so this is aerobics with Leith. Martha, you don't have to do anything. Maciek, you have to do the same, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Right. Now, Diane, Gregor, you have to do the opposite. All right. Good. Hind, you have to do the same, please. Okay, and Beata, the same. All the way up. Good. Now what we've got there is a giant X across the screen. So hold up for 2 more seconds if you would, please. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This is an interactive activity. It creates a little bit of laughter. It creates a little bit of momentum, and people have to do something physically. Gregor, if you could just put your arm back up, your elbow, your left elbow much higher. Left elbow much higher. That's it. Now we've got the giant X across the screen. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Excellent. Well done for everybody who participated. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. So for those of you that didn't have, thank you for the thumbs up, Sanaz. I love that. For those of you who didn't take part of that, I've got one more little exercise for you. Okay. So I'd really like you to listen to what I'm saying and follow the actions. Okay, you ready? Is everybody ready? Thumbs up if you're ready. Okay. So I'd like you to put your hand like this. Can you see that? Like a goodwill sign? Yeah. And then on 3, listen to what I'm saying and do what listen to what I'm saying. Okay. And do what I'm saying. So on 3, I'd like you to place your hand on your chin. 1, 2, 3, on your chin. Okay, now freeze frame. Don't move. Where did I say to everybody to put their hand? On your chin. So, for some bizarre reason, everybody followed my action. In other words, what we see is much stronger sometimes than what we hear. Or if you're following a leader, for example, Maciek will talk about this, then you're much more likely to be set an example by what you're doing rather than what you're saying. When I say everybody put your hand on your chin, you all heard the words, but you all did this. So another little fun exercise, and again, you can use this on your own webinars, your own training. It's a small icebreaker, an energizer, whatever you want to call it. Maciej.
This is exactly good exercise. I see many people who are having team or leaders here. What is the most important is not what you're saying. Yeah, they may hear you, but first of all, they look at you, they watch you. So walk the talk manager, walk the talk leader. The most important is that you are giving example, and because this is what you are being watched by all your employees or subordinates. And this is a strong message also that if you want to really be a good leader, first of all, you have to give the example. Late, we have like 18 minutes to go.
Okay, so let's do the Menti. Now, since this is all about storytelling, this is absolutely critical. I'd like you all to go into the chat box and Maciek will put, have you already put that in, Maciek?
Yes, because some people were in the chat, so people already voted.
Okay, great. So if you go to the chat box, if you haven't already voted, please let us know if you've previously used a story in the past in any presentation. If you haven't, or if you haven't but would like to. So we'll leave that up for a few more seconds so we can see the variations. You should be seeing that in real time. Great, look at that.
Yeah, I remind you that we can vote on menti.com 88 91 85, or you can go to the chat box and vote.
That's wonderful, really good. So the vast majority of you used stories in the past. That's excellent. Okay, another 5 or 10 seconds. I think that's everybody now, Maciej.
Yeah.
Good. So what I'd like to do now, since Agnieszka, you already had the main role in the last game, I would like to have a volunteer that has already had a story in a presentation before. It looks like there was 17 of you. So if I could ask just one of you to volunteer. Anybody, any takers for the story that they've great. Parfait. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Parfait, if you would like to unmute yourself. And it's very simple. I'd like to know why you chose to use a story, first off, and then tell us a little bit about the story that you used, if that's okay.
I used the story because it was at a meeting to engage stakeholders on the support of some social activities in Africa. And the story I used was simple. It was my story. I talked to people who were in the room to look at me. If I'm in front of them today, they have to know that I would have died because of malaria.
Right.
I would have died because of many other diseases that I'm in front of them today. And this chance many kids, many children in Africa don't have. If we want to change things, we need to start now. So this was the story I told to them, and really it was impactful. I was a bit surprised by the impact of what I said. It was coming from my heart.
Yeah. And I know you previously, Parfait, and I know you speak from the heart. And frankly, I'm not surprised you shared a story, but what made that really impactful is that it was your own story that came from your heart. And it's really interesting you say that. We're going to talk about that in a second. How did you link that? Were you on the webinar too last week?
Yes.
So you heard about Bill Gates and you heard about David Beckham?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So we know the power of those stories for sure. And yours sounds very, very similar. How did you link your personal story to the business objective? Just very briefly, if you may.
It was a bit simple because of the business objective was to engage the stakeholders who were in the room to sign a memorandum of understanding.
Right.
On some diseases, and by giving them, most of them decide to sign it, and it was good.
Wonderful. Parfait, thank you very much. And just to pull out what Parfait said there, he spoke from the heart. It was a personal story. And what he said there, if you listen carefully, was it was actually quite easy to link it to the business objective. So it's not difficult. And that was completely random with Parfait. Parfait, thanks once again. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Maciej.
Right. So let me tell you some basic information about how the story should be characterized. So if you are telling a story, they should have the following, let me say, features.
Yeah.
So first of all, describe specific situation and give all details to provide authenticity. You remember that Late said, oh, she had his daughter had 800 grams and can be held in one hand. That I remember I said about the white sneakers with yellow blinking lights. I said I woke up 5 o'clock in the morning. So you might say that Parfait spoke about mosquitoes. Last week we spoke about mosquitoes. So using the same parallel, you might say the story is fed by details like mosquitoes are fed by fresh blood. So remember, giving details, you make it more authentic. Very important element, trigger emotions. Story has to be emotionally. I'm sure you felt emotions when Lade was talking about his daughter, and probably you also have some emotions when you thought about potential kidnap of Kate. Why emotions are so important? Because they are deeply incorporated in our hippocamp, in our brain, part of our brain called hippocamp. And for years later, people may not remember what you were saying, but they probably remember how they were feeling. And this is the link that the link can be associated with the topics you were talking. So emotions are very, very important in the storytelling. The best is your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Late gave great experience from his life. Stories sometimes can be, like I use, can be not necessarily your experience, can be from someone else. But what is important has to be true story. And I assure you, the story with the Disneyland is true. By the way, when I heard first time, I couldn't believe it. I was checking, I was following it, and this is a real true story. And the most important information, by the way, emphasis, the most important information. If you don't have it, the story is for story. So the story must be linked to the objective, could be business objective. The story is on the vehicle on which you are bringing your main message to support your goal of your presentation. I repeat it because this is extremely important. Story without bringing to the message is kind of a, nice saying something, telling something. Story is a vehicle on which you are bringing the message supporting your goal of your presentations. That's the fundamental important thing of the story. Late.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true. Ultimately, you need to find a bridge, as I call it, a link from whatever your story is to your business objective, or whatever the objective of the presentation is. You heard the story about Kate, and if I say Kate, you'll immediately remember the story. Disneyland Paris, she was almost kidnapped. If I say the word Ruby, you'll immediately remember born, almost not survived, and becomes a world champion. So stories are really, really powerful. And for those of you not using stories, I would strongly urge you to consider stories from anywhere in your life. We've done the why stories are important. And I know from speaking to many of you online, you want to know how do I get stories? Parfait was a good example. He just got it from the heart, from himself, from his personal life. So did I, so did Maciej, with the story of a very good friend with a daughter, Kate. So for me, and it is only me, there are many, many other ways you can do this. I journal, I document my everyday life, what's happening. Now that doesn't have to be 2 or 3 pages. It can literally be a line or 2 or 3. It can even be a couple of key words. So let me share my screen with you right now, and you can have a look. This is one way of doing it. I do this in a sketch pad with color pencils. I've happened to do this on an app. Equally, you can do it on your own journal, in an app, wherever you choose to. The middle, you can see storytelling. You can take any one of those branches. If you know anything about mind mapping, it's a very visual way of picturing where you want your thought process to go. I've got the book here from Tony Buzan. I can put it in the link later. He does business mind maps, but there are many books about mind mapping. The idea with it is you take one color and expand on it. So let's take, I don't know, on the far left in green, transport. You can see, taxi, trains, boats, cycling, motorcycling, walking, flying, whatever it might be. And each one of these, by the way, each branch can be expanded into many more. So if you take, flying, for example, how many of us have had a problem or an issue in the airport? I suspect probably the vast majority of us. How many of us have had a problem on a train or a metro or an underground? Have you lost your passport? Have you lost your baggage? What did you do? How long did it take to recover? All of those situations are personal stories. Now, you may not use all of them, but if you document them, if you document your life, you will have a rich tapestry of information to come back on later and draw a story from it. Let's take another one. Technology, bottom, right on the bottom in this sort of blue color. Technology, Wi-Fi, connectivity, mobile phone, laptop, conference calls. I know for a fact people on this call that have had issues with webinars, conference calls, and technology generally. They can become a very powerful story if you have the imagination and the time to think about how to bridge it to your business presentation. And there are many areas of your life that you can consider: your friends, your family, your social life, your entertainment, lessons you've learned, losses you've had, gains you've had. These are all potential stories. So when I get asked, how do I come up with a story? Create a mind map for yourself. Journal. I write everything down. And maybe I'm just weird, but I write everything down, which means I then have, as I say, a whole bunch of stuff that I can draw upon for stories. So in summary, essentially, we're looking at how stories are very effective. How when you connect with your emotions, you're able to connect with people's right-hand side of the brain, which is where they make the decisions, by the way. Don't bore them with data, analysis, facts and figures. Yes, all of that's relevant, but how boring is it? If you can link it, as the story with Kate, HR, policies, procedures, link it to a real life story, all of a sudden, I know you guys on this call, and I certainly will remember that story. And the next time you're in a big shopping mall or Disneyland or a big event, you will remember that you are safeguarded by an HR or by a policy or by some kind of procedure that was once a very boring presentation that somebody brought to life. Maciek.
Yes, thank you, Late. This is very much right that all people are making majority part of decision based on the emotions. This is not true. Even very blue people with this left brain minded, they have very much big part of emotional decision making, and everything else is like justifies later by the rational brain. I'm just looking into the chat. Thank you very much. It's a lot of blessing, I would say. Will the recording be available? Yes, if you send me personal information, by personal message on the mail, you've been invited. I will send you a recorded message probably in 2 days. It's a beautiful picture. Looks real. Ruby, she looks really awesome. God bless her. Thank you. Fantastic story. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. There was a question. Such an amazing story, Late. Thank you for sharing. So there's a lot of you can read, Late. Also helping her now with kickboxing. Amazing story. Right.
Yep, that's Noogie. Thank you, Noogie.
There was one more question. I want to refer to it. There's many comments. I'll not read all of them. We don't have time. How to deliver emotional message with the business topic? That's a good question. I think one of the example I gave you, it is, that you have a typical business topic, HR procedure, and you might refer to something which happened to your friends. I will not have time to share another one, but I, being a general manager of a pharmaceutical company, vaccination company, I was using another story, and this is a real story again from my life, when I met once a friend of mine, Barbara, and she got married, my friend. I didn't see them for 30 years. When we just greet each other, we have a nice chat. I said, "Where is Tomek?" And she said, he's gone. What do you mean he's gone? And he died due to implications of influenza. I don't have time to talk about it, but it was so striking, emotional. So you might say, as a general manager, 6,000 people in Poland are dying due to influenza because they are unvaccinated. Or you might say the very individual story of your friend, of your colleague, and tell that this is one of the tragedies. You have 6,000 such a tragedies in Poland because people don't want to protect themselves. So this is, you might have many examples. What is important that the elements of emotion should be incorporated. I think, Late, we are going to the roundup.
Yep.
So maybe I will do very shortly. As we said last week, think differently. Don't think that story is only for theater, cinema, maybe to your kids. No, story is a powerful message. It's a powerful to managers. Of course, you have to find the right way to share the story, but you believe me or not, you'll be recognized, you'll be effective, and this tool is really fantastic. before I ask you about your takeaways, late.
Yeah, just very briefly, because I'm very respectful of your time. Just, I would say, have the courage and be brave enough to share your personal story. You heard myself, you heard Maciek, and you heard Paufe, and we're not alone. I'm sure there were many more people on this call that would also share a story. But for those of you that have thought about it that haven't or have never done it, please, I urge you to think about a story that you can share. Is it going to be perfect first time? No. I'm just being honest with you. But the more you do it, the better you get. And the better you get, the more you want to do it, because you'll see the results. You are genuinely connecting heart to heart with another person. It's an emotional story, or it's a happy story, or it's, a sad story, or an inspiring story. It doesn't matter. But ensure that if you're in a business context, to make sure you bridge it to whatever key message you're trying to get them to go away with. It's how you make them feel. And finally, just make sure you document it anywhere, on your phone, on a piece of paper, a journal, doesn't matter. So, Maciek.
Thanks. I use OneNote. It's a very good way to collect the story. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, before we say goodbye to you, we have the last request. Some of you already fill in. Please share with us what are your key takeaways from today's webinar. So you have now 1 minute maybe to especially what you are going to use in your business life. This would be very important for all of us to inspire. What are the more major key takeaways going with you? Can you see it?
Here we go. Yeah.
All right. Heart to heart. Yes. Meaningful story. Trigger emotions. Very important. I love it. Connection before content.
Thank you.
And emotion through story. Authenticity, right. Be original. I keep repeating, be different, be original, tell story, dress up, play, dance, be someone who is like out of the average crowd.
That's wonderful. And this, by the way, as I say, it's Menti. It's a great tool. You can see this in real time. And, the word cloud in itself is a great piece of equipment, because the largest words in the word cloud are the ones that people take away most. So connection before content seems to be one of the big ones there. Be original and use emotion and bridge. And all of those, I would say, are critical. 4 or 5 main ones there, and so many others that surround. Speak from the heart, be original, use a true story, listen carefully. I suspect that was that one. So trigger the attention, prepare. I love that, mind mapping and preparation. Well done. It's so true, because if you don't have a story, you can't do it anyway. So documenting your stories from the start is great. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. It's just 2:00. So what do we have to say? Thank you deeply from our heart. We are inviting you for the last part of our journey, which will be exactly the same time next Wednesday, UK 12 CET time, 1:00, and we will say about a very important thing: to be original, to be out of the box. You have to have courage. So we will say how to manage stress related to the public presentations, how to take care of your nerves or of your anxiety, right? And we'll have a surprise also. Right?
We do have a surprise. We'll have a surprise. We'll leave that till next week. But certainly the first half was always about how to manage your stress and anxiety, which is very simple to do, but the vast majority of us probably don't do it. That's it from us. I'm respecting your time, so I'm going to say thank you once again, really from the heart, very much for everybody that's joined us. We really appreciate it.
No exercise?
Yeah, we can just
waving?
do a big wave, everybody. Ready?
Big wave.
Big wave, everybody. And then 3, 2, 1, disconnect. So that was part 3 of the golden rules of online presentations and meetings. You saw there that the focus was very much around storytelling and how desperately important it is to use the art of storytelling. The good news, as you will have witnessed, is that it can be learned. Just like any other business skill, it is something you can learn. And with practice and through time, you're able to very much captivate and engage your audience just with a good story. The trick, though, as you saw, was to ensure that you link that you bridge from your story, sometimes a personal story, to the key business message. And that is the magic right there. We also looked at how to captivate with icebreakers and so on, but the key message with part 3 that you've just seen was how important stories are. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on part 4.